Vayse. Welcome to Vayse, a podcast about weird stuff. I'm Pete C. Hine, and joining me as always is my old friend and co-host. He's feeling sleepy, very sleepy. He can hear my voice and only my voice. Pete C. Hine is his best friend. He will help Pete C. Hine reach enlightenment. He will help Pete C. Hine reach karmic purification. He will buy Pete C. Hine as much peanut butter and tofu as money can buy. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and he's back in the room. It's Mr. Stephen James Buckley.
Whoa. Oh. Hey, man, how's it going?
How are you doing, Steve?
I was wondering, have you ever been hypnotized?
I've been to hypnotherapy.
Yeah, so have I. Did it work?
Well, I had like one session and then it was lockdown with COVID and all that sort of thing.
Right, okay. No, I actually did have it when I was younger. I had globophobia, which is a phobia of balloons.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I got it. I still feel a bit edgy around them, but like I'm better now. Not as afraid of balloons, but yeah, hypnotism.
Well, the relevance of this talk is that we do have a guest tonight, and he is a bit of a legend in these parts. He is the host of Weird Web Radio, which is a pioneer of what we think of now as the modern weird podcast. I think it's been going it'll be 10 years this year. He appeared on Hellier, which is a huge phenomena in occult circles. He is a hypnotist. He is a practicing magician, a heathen, and he's an award-winning tarot reader. It's Mr. Lonnie Scott. Lonnie, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Lonnie.
Hey, that was a really good induction you were working on there.
Shh, he doesn't know about it.
What are you guys talking about?
What? Oh, never mind. Yeah.
Oh, it's a real pleasure to have you here. You're actually, I think you're the third person from Hellier that we've had on now, because we've had Alan Greenfield, we had Nathan Paul Isaac, and we talked to you because it was Hellier, I suppose, that kind of got us into this whole thing. Is they one of the main influences when we started podcasting all together, and obviously you appeared in that, so you've been there influencing us since the very beginning, and that's not to mention your podcast, which is one of the oldest and best that there's around at the moment. It predates all of the ones, even Spirit Box, What Magic Is This? You were going for a decade now. Which
podfather.
The podfather.
Dara calls me the OG of podcasting. It cracks me up though, because there's so many that I listen to that are just kind of quit recording over time. It makes me sad. My favorites aren't there, and now I've been at it all this time, but I don't think of it that way.
It's the circle of life.
Still have 12 emails out, hoping people can schedule when I want to schedule.
I mean, you've had when we were first putting together Vayse and listening for examples, yours was one of the ones that turned up, and you've had these incredible guests right from the beginning. I mean, you were interviewing Aidan Wachter before it was cool to interview Aidan Wachter. You were in there, and how did you get started with what was it? I mean, why podcasting was it? Because I mean, now it seems like an obvious thing to do, but I suppose 10 years ago it was a different landscape.
I got into podcasting because in a roundabout way, I am a big fan of Kevin Smith.
Right. Yeah.
Clerks and Smodcast and, Hollywood Babylon and all the shows that he does. Huge fan of Kevin Smith's comedy and material. And he's just an all around great dude. Right. If I could choose my own saints, he'd go on the list. And
absolutely.
And I'm not sure he'd ever listen to an episode of my show. He's very clearly not into this kind of stuff, but that doesn't matter. He's a big influence on me. Kevin wrote this book called an autobiography called Life Advice from a Fat Man That Did Good. and I think it was, and it might have been, that might be the subtitle. The title's Tough Shit, if I remember correctly. I can curse on this show.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So anyway, Kevin, the first half of that book is all about how Kevin got into filmmaking and, the trials and tribulations thereof, and how he met his wife, and how his wife was such a big part of him climbing to his success and his identity. And then the last half of the book is about how podcasting changed his life again, saved his life, helped him grow closer to friends, help his friends get platforms. And I started looking his podcasts up, and because I didn't know he had any. I didn't really listen to a lot of podcasts at that time. And then I found others like Tim Ferriss, and then I started looking for podcasts that were more about witchcraft and magic and heathenry or whatever I could find in that front, and found some folks that were doing it, like Down at the Crossroads is one of my all-time favorites. I was just listening to all these different things, anything I could find. And then I got my playlist for, your pagan occult kind of theme podcast grew and grew and grew and grew. And I'd listen to them interviewing all these different people, and I would hear them just leave questions on the floor. It was driving me nuts. And part of that is because I became such a big fan of Tim Ferriss's podcast, which is huge. He's one of the number one podcasts every year. And his style of interviewing is really trying to dig into the guest and pick apart what makes them successful, or what makes them the why behind their stuff, not always, just the bullet points of their biography. Yeah. So he's also very good at following up with things that are said rather than just leaving them there. So I like that interview style of abandoning the plan. When I interviewed Richard Cadre, who's the author of the Sandman Slim series, a piece of advice he gave for like writers out there was, you don't owe the outline anything. Yeah. And that counts for us too. Yeah. So yeah. I think it's really important. So all of that said, I was really wanted to get into podcasting. It felt very confusing. There was a lot of conflicting advice. It seemed expensive. There's, the equipment you have to get. And is my laptop even good enough? And, what kind of microphone? How am I even going to record this? And what do I do once I do that? Where does it go? And you had to figure all these things out. And as I slowly kind of experimented, figure out what I was going to do, I met somebody who knew how to put audio together. He had an audio I don't know what to call it. It was like a radio show. It's acting, voice actors, but it's all cool, yeah. But it's all just pure audio. And he helped put together the intro to my show, and showed me how to use Audacity, which is what I use to edit the recordings and put all the show together. So all that's just a long-winded way to say is like I ended up podcasting because I read Kevin's book and thought, this sounds cool. Then I found all those podcasts and they sounded cool. And then I found more podcasts and they didn't sound so cool. Yeah. And I also thought, how cool would it be just to talk to people that, how else would I meet these guys or these women out there or these people? Like, at that moment in my life, they're all really, truly are just names on the spine of a book or names on a TV show. Yeah. Now they're people. Yeah. They're people with all the same struggles and hopes and dreams we all do, but they have interesting insights and techniques they've developed or come to practice. And I like to pick apart not only that, but like, why and when do you struggle? What'd you do about that? And, I want to approach it in a different way. So that's what Weird Web Radio was when it was born. That's how I've evolved it over time. And now it's just a part of my life. It's something that I love to do.
Yeah. And I mean, I absolutely love to listen to it. And I really love that answer because you're the first person I think that we've interviewed who, when we've asked them, why do you have a podcast, or why do you do this, they've actually gone back to podcasting, as if rather than it just saying, oh, well, because nowadays everyone has a podcast and it just seems like a natural thing to do, whereas 10 years ago it wasn't like that. And the cool thing is that the first podcast I listened to were Kevin Smith ones. So it was, because it was I remember back in 2011, and I was working in this freezing building on my own, archiving legal documents, and I really needed something to listen to. And I was just sick of listening to the same music. And I found out that Kevin Smith, he did this one back then called Jay and Silent Bob Get Old. Yeah. And it was about basically how Jason Mewes fell back into heroin addiction. And in order to encourage him to recover, he said, if you recover, we will do a podcast together. And that was the podcast. And it was just fantastic from the beginning. There was a few others that because he has his whole network, doesn't he?
Kevin Smith? It's a Smodcast network. Like you had Fat Man on Batman.
Yeah.
Like I said, Hollywood Babylon was always my favorite.
Yeah, I like that one.
They did that, him and Ralph Garman in front of live audiences.
Yeah.
Which always good stuff. And then of course Smodcast, and he did stuff with Jay, and then his friends all had stuff like there was a round table of like the comic book guys, and it was just good quality, funny content.
Yeah, and I always like when I listen to Weird Web Radio that it seems to have a bit more of a feel of, because again I feel like perhaps people who aren't of our sort of age bracket, people who might be in their 20s who start podcasts now have only ever listened to podcasts really, whereas I used to and still do listen to a lot of radio, like actual radio that comes through the air into your aerial, over your actual radio set. And we're really lucky here in Britain to have the BBC. So as long as you pay your television license, you've got access to hundreds and hundreds of really good radio channels that do everything: documentaries, dramas, your experimental audio stuff, great music. But they do some really good talk radio, and I feel the roots of weird rape. Why can't I say that today?
I don't know. Nobody radio. Can say it.
It's a tongue twister.
I'm a victim of my own alliteration.
But I do feel the roots of that. And like you were saying, you do have that knack of getting in to getting down to what people want to hear out of that. Whereas some podcasts, I feel, not the ones that I listen to so much anymore, but they sort of skim across the surface and you never really get down into the substance. But I always feel, Lonnie, that you do get down in there. And another thing that I really love about it as well is that you have this way, a really nice way with your guests. You're kind of polite and you've got that you gentlemanly way around you, but you also don't take any bullshit. And that is a really, really good way to be, because I think it goes a long way, particularly in a subject like what we've got. I think that people too quickly become a bit dogmatic, or they become unfriendly, or they like, my view's the correct view and your view isn't, and whatever. And I think that it is really important to have that, decency about you when you're doing these. And all of my favorite podcasters do have that real sort of, I think that they've got to be friendly and they've got to be able to make people feel at ease. And I think that's something else that you do really well on your podcast.
I appreciate that. That's all very kind of you to say, very humbling. I treat my guests on my show in a way that I would have done in a previous mode of employment. I was a bartender for 20 years of my life. Bartender and a bar manager. So I always I approach the conversation with my guests and their comfort levels and everything as if, they were the only customer at the bar that night. And just me and them. I'm not going to sit there and watch TV while they drink their drink, have their beer and watch TV. Yeah. I want to know why are you here? What are you into? Where you been? What's something cool about where you live?
Yeah, that's really interesting, because obviously, like, in that situation, you've almost not got preparation because you don't know who's going to walk in and what they're going to be like, and there's all sorts of things. So I guess that would have set you up to be able to deal, that was like starting at the deep end, really. I guess podcasting is relatively
I got
easy.
very inadvertent training to be a podcaster.
Yeah. So going back before you, I'm assuming this is before you did bar work, but what were the things sort of early in your life that got you into the weirder side of things? What sort of influences and things happened to you that brought you to become who you are today in terms of the weird things that you're interested in and that you talk about and that you do?
A guy showed up to my house with a letter. No.
You got one too.
Yeah, you're a wizard. No.
Is that a Harry Potter reference?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I've never seen it or read it. So.
I love Harry Potter.
Who's Harry Potter? No, just no. Let's see. I wasn't raised in any particular religion. My parents were what I call coffee table Christians.
Okay.
And this was pretty common in the 80s, at least here in the United States. Those glass coffee tables, they always have some big book underneath it in our house. It was the Bible, a great big one, an inch of dust on top of that thing because nobody cracked it open, not once, not ever.
But it was where everyone could see it.
Yeah. And then on one of by one of the doors of the house, there was this clock that had a very white Jesus looking up at the time. And that was that. I mean, really.
Well, there you go. It's better than nothing, isn't it?
Yeah. But, living in a small town in the Midwest, there's only about 20,000 people that live here. You can't help but be influenced somewhere, somehow, by just the Protestant Christianity that is part of the bedrock of just this country. And I don't know, I was 12, 13, somewhere in that range. I started getting real curious about just spirituality in general and, would hang out with friends. I started asking more spiritual questions, finding them lacking. I read the Bible. I just don't gel with it. I looked into the Quran and asked some Jewish friends what they were into and dug into Buddhism. That was way more interesting.
Yeah.
And from there is just one exploration to another until I met a certain group of friends who had books that were available at that time. The very first book that I got my hands on was Celtic Magic by DJ Conway.
Oh, yeah.
Not a fan, but at 13 or 14, whatever I was at this time, the idea that there could be multiple gods and multiple goddesses, I never knew there was a thing like polytheism before, that you could speak to them. I didn't know you could do that, that you could light a certain candle, say a certain phrase, and your will would be enacted into the... I didn't know that was a thing before I read any of this. I thought all that stuff was in the movies. And those movies I watched were really bad. I'm talking about like The Gate. I'm thinking, am I going to get an eye in my hand? I mean,
that sounds cool.
Yeah, those old 80s horror flicks were great. Yeah. Army of Darkness stuff,
Army of Darkness is
good
great.
Ash, you're bad Ash.
Oh God, I love those 80s and 90s movies.
They were something else.
Yeah.
And I mean, that wasn't my thing, but the very first thing of magic I ever tried was a curse. I had good reason to do so, and I don't want to dig into that today, but I had good reason at that age to try it, and it worked. Undeniable effect. And that was my hook. Like, not only is it cool that you have all these different spiritual views that I had not been exposed to previously, but this whole magic thing you're talking about seems to actually be real. So off to the races I went. I did what every Midwestern white kid in in the late 80s, early 90s did. And I ran to Walden Books and stole allegedly the Satanic Bible.
Hey, you knew what you wanted, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, that was perfect for an angry 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And it just, anything I could get my hands on. And at that time, you know, we had a local Walden Books, and it was a whole lot of Sylvia Browne books, Raymond Buckland's Book of Witchcraft, The Truth About Witchcraft Today from Llewellyn, had a woman in a business suit on the front. It's real witchy. That was back when there was a real, I think, concerted effort to take the teeth out of witchcraft to make the public perception think it was safe and please leave us alone. And then when I was 17, I always remember it when I was 17, it's when I really found out what I was attracted to and what would end up being some of the bedrock of what I still do. That was my first exposure to chaos magic, and that was my first exposure to runes, which led me into heathenry. But how I got started, it really was just being curious, meeting a group of people who had material to read, and then being willing to just read and explore everything. I couldn't, and I still have that. I think that's part of what fuels my podcast. I'm incredibly curious about who you are, what do you believe, why do you believe it, what does it look like when you actually do it, how do you feel when you do it, how do you know it's working, you know? And to be fair, I ask myself all those same questions throughout my own practice. So I just think it was that curiosity that got me through all those years until I finally found what resonated with me, and I'm still curious about everyone.
Yeah, and I think that's like, curiosity is just massively underrated as a thing. Like, you know, that kind of, I think I probably speak for all of us here in saying that, like, having natural curiosity has just led to so much joy in my life. Like, you know, in terms of things that I've been interested in and explored, and like, I kind of can't understand people who don't have it. It's like, why would you not want to find out about all these things? Like, why would you not want to, like, I can't grok that, like, idea that someone could just sort of go through without wanting to know about, you know, the weird shit and the unexplained stuff and, you know, things like that. It's it's baffling.
Yeah,
like, I grew up a couple blocks away from two big cemeteries, and one's a Catholic cemetery, one's your more secular, everybody else gets a hole. And there's this big angel statue in the Catholic cemetery, and there was this local folklore, I still hear it told every once in a while, that if you held a flame to the angel's eyes on a full moon, it would shoot fire. So naturally, I'm down there with the matches.
Did you get it to shoot fire?
Waiting for it to get dark, wondering why this isn't working. You know?
Yeah, it sounds like when people would like light a fart or like that kind of thing.
So I guess so. You tried magic out, and the first thing that you did worked. And that's quite common, surprisingly common. And that happened with me as well. I had some experiences early on, and then I hit this sort of lull with nothing, you know, when I did something, it worked, and suddenly I was like, ooh, it's real. Yeah, this is real. This is great. And then I tried to look, then it tailed off, and then I kind of was in a bit of a wilderness for a while, thinking like, did I imagine that? Or until I started to find something that kind of suited me a bit better. Did you go through a similar thing, or did you find a consistency in how you made your practice work for you, or did you kind of did you sort of do it through trial and error?
I tried everything I could. And especially at that age, it depended on what I could get my hands on. And, you know, we, of course, we're young. We want money. So we start trying to find a way to get money. And you suddenly get offers for odd jobs and stuff. That was cool, but it wasn't like it was rocking our world or changing our lives. And who knows, maybe we were going to get those anyway, right? Then, you know, you're a teenage teenager and hormones are raging. You're like, well, let's try this love stuff. Here's the funny thing I can look back on is I know exactly what I was doing at that age and time, 15, 16 years old, trying love magic out of some grimoire that was in a $5.99 paperback. And not getting the specific results I wanted. But then I look back on this and I think, I do all this love magic, right? And then what I end up doing after that is that's when I get exposed to like Liber Null. And that book is full of, disciplined mental concentration, object concentration, breath concentration, meditation, and it develops character and strength of mind and knowing yourself. So it kind of in a retrospective way, just maybe the love magic I thought I was doing as this super horny teenager turned me towards something that would make me a much more productive man overall in a proper format.
Yeah.
It's like maybe you don't need to be meeting girls right now. You need to become less of a douchebag.
I think that probably applies to every teenage boy.
A lot of people say that, don't they? Is that if they keep on practicing that, they start to get what they need rather than what they want. And I think that's probably for the best, because I think if we all got what we wanted as horny teenagers, and I think that there would be it would be chaos. It would
extraordinarily
be
bad.
You are not wrong. Those are the last people that should be in charge. Look at ancient history.
So chaos magic was it that kind of really ignited you then? That like Liber Null, I guess, would have been coming over to America in the 80s, and what was it about chaos magic that caught your imagination?
Well, it felt like, compared to everything I had read, because at this point I'd read the available witchcraft stuff and, those Sylvia Browne books, at least one of them, and, whatever psychic book. There was actually a decent book was Creative Visualizations, I think it was called, by like Shakti Gawain.
Oh, okay.
And this little bitty paperback. And tell you, I'm blessed with a mind that can visualize in full theater mode with all sight, sounds, smells, touch. I'm the polar opposite of those poor aphantasic folks.
Yeah.
I guess we just have to be the balance in the force. But when I got Liber Null, it felt like for the first time ever, I was reading something that was really authentic. It just, the way he wrote it felt like we've actually tested this shit out and this is what works. And it's not going to be as easy as you think it is. It's also remarkably easy. Like it's not hard, but it's also not simple. It's weird how it's presented in that fashion, and I don't, over the years, I don't agree with everything he said in that. I quickly found my way to like Phil Hine, who's a much more freewheeling, free-spirited writer in like Condensed Chaos, more fun that way. But it's just the chaos magic things going on at that period. You could get online in Yahoo groups. We had the Z cluster and Autonomatrix and, email lists and stuff where it was just the Wild West of people experimenting and killing every sacred cow there was along the way. Like just daring people, tell me I can't and watch me do it. And I just love that attitude. Like I'm also into martial arts, and at that period of my life, I was very interested in like not just Bruce Lee the actor, but Bruce Lee the man and his Jeet Kune Do concepts, and all of that's kind of like a more physical approach to that. With that same sort of attitude is like, don't tell me I have to do these specific kind of things because they're tradition. Show me how to really fight. And I liked that attitude. It just, in any avenue I was pursuing, I think I'm more, and I still am, a little more irreverent. I don't care to preserve tradition just because it is. That feels like it's just a bunch of dead people holding a gun to my head. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I can respect the things that matter and resonate, but I think chaos magic resonated with me and still is a big part of my overall attitude because it's results driven and it's not, I don't know how to say it. It's not looking to build some sacred, fossilized, locked in time kind of, you must do this, this, and this, and this.
Yeah, because I think for Buckley and I, we kind of grew up in the 90s, and you did have figures who were people like Grant Morrison, for example, and they opened Chaos Magic out to this huge audience, you know, in a way that never really been done. And I guess we kind of took for granted that was a magical, or that was an option, that kind of magical system. Whereas I suppose when you look back to kind of what was there before that, there was a lot of claimed tradition, things like Wicca and Thelema and other things like that kind of co-opt an ancient tradition and say that it goes back for thousands of years when perhaps it doesn't necessarily. But there seems to be that need to claim a lineage, or there needs to be or a tradition or something ancient about it. Whereas Chaos Magic rips that up, throws it out, and says whatever works. So try this, this, and see what works. And I suppose that's a complete change to what was there before.
Yeah, and it's kind of quite like, I think for teenagers, it's kind of quite punk, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got that, like, you know, it felt like punk magic, and it felt like quite kind of, and the other thing, it felt sort of almost a bit more scientific, which is not necessarily a good thing when I think about it now, but like at the time it felt like you had, you know, sort of when I first encountered chaos magic, you had sort of what I would have thought of as ceremonial magic and you know, things that were very traditional and probably more akin to, you know, the Catholic Church or something, a lot of robes and ceremonies and wizards and things like that. Whereas to me, that wasn't cool. Whereas it seemed like this chaos magic book that I read was talking about things like fractals and which I didn't really understand, but it just seemed cooler. It was just like more appealing. And I guess it is, sometimes it's just about how things are marketed. And I think like with chaos magic, it felt like it was a bit more kind of geared towards people that were perhaps a bit younger and a bit more kind of rebellious and stuff like that. But
I guess it had that mindset as well, because I'm sure, didn't Peter Carroll, wasn't he a scientist or have some sort of scientific training?
Well, he says he is. I don't know if he is or not. I don't know a lot about the man. You know, he tries to create like in his next book in Liber Chaos, he presents a lot of mathematical formulas where he's trying to prove you know, the reality of magic and stuff. And it's beyond me. I don't do that. And I'm not sure he's on the right track anyway.
No.
Yeah. With chaos magic for me, like it versus all those other things, it just, with chaos magic, it felt like I could be in an alley at night with a mud puddle in front of me, smoking a cigarette, with a flickering, struggling neon light still at the end of that alley, and feel just as magical as I would in a grove of trees or in a magical lodge or somewhere. I just felt like it jailbroke the sacred, the magical, out of confined spaces.
Yeah, interesting. But then I suppose then you said you got into heathenry, and I suppose that's almost the opposite, isn't it? Because that is going back to ancient gods and that kind of thing. So how did that follow from chaos magic?
I just do it wrong. No,
we all do. If you're doing it right, is when you have to worry. I think.
It was the runes were how it got me down that road. I mean, runes seemed like the coolest thing ever to me when I first encountered them, and I'd already been digging into chaos magic, so it looked like a no-brainer to me. I'm like, these can be turned into sigils too, right? And you're flipping through the book, and I'm like, oh, look, they did. And they call them bind runes. And I just thought that was great. And it just felt like if I was tapping into something older, maybe, that it this was my original idea, that if I was tapping into something older, that it might be more powerful. That's what I was thinking. I mean, we had discussions when I was 17 years old amongst my little group of friends trying all this shit out. Like, maybe we should worship Egyptian gods. They're old.
Yeah. Did you ever encounter Simon's Necronomicon? Was that your? Yeah, I was going to say that would be that era, wasn't it? Like,
$5.99 Avon paperback.
Yeah. And
open up gates to end the world.
It used to terrify me, that book.
I know, and it's mad how the guy that wrote it is now like sort of involved in the To the Stars Academy and hanging out with Tom DeLonge, and it's like, what?
I think Peter Levenda wrote those, right?
Yeah. Okay,
yeah. He definitely did. Yeah. She's like, I saw some Babylonian stuff, thought it'd look cool in the book, and just made shit up. With heathenry, I go down this runic path, and you cannot study runes. I got into Elder Futhark. It seems to be the most common in most of your modern esoteric things anyway. And I just don't think you can study runes and use them with any degree of really getting to know them without finding your way into the lore that surrounds Nordic mythology and those cultures and the rune poems. And
So I'm quite ignorant about runes. How do you use them? I've never looked into that. It's come at a good time though, because I'm revisiting all of the Nordic folklore at the moment and the myths and the legends of Loki and Thor and Odin and everything. So I'm really into it. But I've never used runes myself. So what's the idea behind all that?
Well, the rune itself is a word that means mystery, probably means letter to, something like that. They were alphabets. They were in what are called futharks,
Okay.
and so you have the Elder Futhark, which is the most mysterious. It's most mysterious because it's the oldest. It's what's found on some of the oldest stones, mostly throughout Central and Northern Europe, and a few bracteates and things that have been found over time. It's been reconstructed from what we know about the younger Futhark and the Anglo-Saxon Futhark, or the English one. I may not be right calling it Anglo-Saxon, but it's more English. They all had rune poems attached to them. The younger Futhark we know a lot more about because, it's a 16-letter system instead of 24. And it was heavily used during the Viking Age. So, and there's poems written for each one of those. Same for the other Futharks. There's poems written for the Icelandic Futhark. There's some for the Anglo-Saxon one. And runologists, academics, take all that information and reconstruct what they think that Elder Futhark means. Then they get popularized through esoteric writing. Ralph Bloom put out this crummy little rune set and got everybody thinking there's such a thing as a blank rune. There's not. And then Edred Thorson, also known as Stephen Flowers, he writes books like Futhark and stuff like that makes him more popular amongst Nordic pagans and pagans in general. And he's a very problematic figure. And then over time, people keep writing on it more. Runologists find out more information, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Runes are an alphabet. That's what I'm getting at. They are letters. They're used to write things. And probably were used for a lot of things that we don't know about. Academics will try to tell you that's all they were, was just an alphabet, which would make the Nordic and Germanic people the only people in the history of ever that only used their alphabet for writing. Alphabets are magical everywhere.
No, absolutely. And when you look at their traditions, I said, I was revisiting the myths and legends, and there is so much crazy shit in there. Like it's so imaginative and so descriptive in the way that the world was formed, and the way they look at the cosmos as well is just absolutely fantastic.
It's really cool stuff, and a lot of that comes from Iceland too. It's also kind of a fossilized moment in time of stories that were very alive and probably weren't the same across all that time and location. So that's an Icelandic and Norwegian view more than anything. We have very little that survived from, continental Europe and so on.
But those stories are absolutely wall-to-wall magic, aren't they? I mean, it's just that there's no way that these guys weren't using their alphabet in some way to do magic, because every little part of those stories, from Loki changing shape into animals to the earth being formed from the blood of an ice giant and that kind of thing, is just it's just magical. It's so magical and so exciting.
They are very cool. I mean, right from the get-go in the Poetic Edda, you have the Poetic Edda, and then what's the Prose Edda, or also known as Snorri's Edda. The Poetic Edda is a collection of poems that and heroic stories that some of the poetry has been dated to definitely show, however linguists do this, to come from the late pagan period, pre-conversion. Anyway, the Poetic Edda, the very first thing in there usually is Voluspa, and that is, the seeress speaking, and you have Odin basically raising a seeress from the dead and forcing her to answer questions about everything from the creation of the universe all the way to Ragnarok and what happens afterwards. And it's this give back and forth kind of conversation. So right off the bat, you have necromancy. Page 1.
I mean, I love that whole bit of the story, because something that's so interesting about Odin is just that absolute insatiable hunger for knowledge. Like you're saying, he goes down to however many levels to raise someone from the dead, to discuss. He's giving his eye and other. He's giving anything he can for more and more knowledge. And it's such a cool, because you were saying before about curiosity and how important it is, but that shows kind of the underpinning of the Allfather, is there, and he just wants to know more and more. He wants to know he's got that thirst for knowledge, which I just like. That I was really inspired when I read that.
I think with that sort of stuff as well, it's so kind of deeply embedded in our culture as well, because if you think sort of someone like Tolkien was really influenced by Scandinavian mythology and stuff like that, and then sort of Tolkien was a huge influence on fantasy and even a lot of the sort of fantasy we see now has still got roots in Tolkien and stuff like that. So it's kind of seeped through the soil and is still part of people's the various mythologies and stuff like that happen through fantasy books and role-playing games and stuff like that. Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer, stuff like that would have all been influenced by Tolkien. And that that all came from that mythology. So it's really powerful shit, because it's seeped through and stayed But
the most popular movies ever, the Marvel movies, you've got Thor, you've got Loki, you've got Odin. It's heavily bastardized versions of these characters. They are there in our culture now. That they're and I was surprised when I was reading these myths, because I was familiar with so many of them without having, I don't think, ever sat down and read them before. I was surprised how much they do. Like Buckley was saying, they do permeate our culture to this day. Like in a very powerful way, and in ways that you don't realize that you're picking it up, which is a cool thing. Anyway, that if these stories are out there, I kind of knew about Odin like stabbing himself into the tree and hanging there so that he could like die and see what was beyond the grave, and that kind of thing is all there, whether it's through Neil Gaiman or whether it's through the Marvel comics or whether it's through Tolkien or whatever. That this mythology is still alive today in some way.
Yeah, and I mean, and Odin is credited in the myth for finding the runes. That's in the Havamal, which is the Sayings of the High One. It's usually the second poem in the Poetic Edda, and it's full of life advice and things like that. And there's a section towards the end of it where now Odin is doing more mystical things. And you get to a part where it says, I know I hung on a windswept tree for all of 9 nights, wounded by spear, given no bread, and all of these things. No one gave me no drink, no horn. And I looked down, I drew up the runes, and screaming, I took them and fell back from there. And it feels like it's this like initiatory experience where Odin is hanging on the tree from what roots no man knows from which it rises. That's Yggdrasil, the world tree.
I was hoping you'd pronounce that. So I can picture how it looks, but I never knew how to pronounce it. I was thinking, I hope one of these two knows how to pronounce it, because then I can talk about it as if I know about it. But
yes, there you go. So Yggdrasil, right? And Yggdrasil actually translated, Ig is one of Odin's many names. I mean, it translates to Odin's horse or Odin's steed. And probably referencing to the fact that he hung on it for so long, right? And, for me, the tree is the centerpiece of all of this. It's both everything, everywhere, all at once, and it's also a place you can go. And, like Aidan talks about the field. There's an old Vedic concept of Indra's web, and it's just similar things, right? There's the concepts of weird and fate and how we're all intertwined. And so for me, I'm just thinking like the tree is one of the main central points. And when Odin's hanging on there as an initiatory experience, if he's looking down to get them, like he's drawing the runes up from the underworld, from chaos, from Gunungagap, if it still exists, the center, that potential of that void full of potential creation. The myth is so cool, in so many ways, and it's myth, right? We don't have to take this literally. It's something to bounce off of. This is one thing. Just as a side note, because it came to mind, but like modern pagans and heathens in particular, because we have so much surviving mythology, it would serve us all well to look, especially at like living traditions that have polytheism still, like the Hindu practitioners, adherents, millions of them worldwide, right? And Buddhism, some sections of Buddhism even have polytheism to it, multiple spirits and stuff like that.
Shinto,
and like, how do they approach their myths versus how do they honor their gods? They're not taking it all literal. It's full of symbology and depth and meaning and lessons, and ours are too. It's just a matter of learning how to, approach it that way rather than trying to take everything literally all the time. They're both entertaining stories, very entertaining, and very insightful as well when you think beyond the literal and you go to something more meaningful and symbolic.
I mean, it is weird because there's such powerful symbols as well. A lot of what's in these stories, and I know that when I've done shamanic journeying, you see a lot of that kind of the fiery underworld and the roots of the tree. And there was a lot when I was doing it about trees and how important that was. And there was one thing that I did in this long ritual where there was a group of us, and we had this thing. It was like soul death, and you had to die and be reborn. And that's obviously a concept that Odin goes through as well. But also for me, when I did it, I was on a tree, and I wasn't I wasn't familiar with the Odin myth. Like we say, it's probably seeped into my subconscious somehow. But these are powerful symbols that because I have that it's really a difficult thing to kind of talk about, to put into words. But when people say, is it literal, do you think of these something literally, or do you think of it metaphorically? Well, there's almost a point where it kind of doesn't matter, because there's kind of a purpose being served by these things. So, perhaps people don't necessarily believe word for word what these myths say, but it doesn't mean that they're not true. If you see what I mean. We talked a little bit about this with Joshua Cutchin.
Yeah, it's like the idea of the imaginal, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The imaginal, a narrative that's important and that can construct things.
Yeah, I think like the importance of stories has been a theme which has come up time and time again in sort of this last year or so of recording that we've done. Like, it seems to be such an important part of I guess like almost every strand of what we investigate in Vayse seems to be now kind of coalescing into being it's about stories, and it's like I suppose that kind of brings us full circle in that we started out doing this, as we were saying to you before, kind of inspired by Hellier, which is effectively a story that's being told, still being told, hopefully. And yeah, it is all about that. It is all kind of rooted in that. And whichever way you look at it, you always end up with it being to do with stories. And they're a very powerful thing. And I think that they're hugely underestimated by a lot of people, because people think of it as just stories, but I don't think it's that simple. I think it's like stories are actually incredibly powerful, and there are people who know that, and some of those people are magicians, and some of those people are like evil fucking manipulative bastards who are like running the world or whatever. Right. I don't know where I'm going with these thoughts.
I get it.
You're
right.
I get it. Yeah, I'm right. It's just it just could do with being a bit finessed, but I'll let my editors deal with that.
Stories are how we move through the world. It's how we identify and make decisions, even subconsciously. It's the stories that are constantly running in our brain, the ones that we identify and believe. And those who want to control those narratives are trying to control your behavior in a lot of ways. If I tell you, you're born bad, and you should feel guilty about that and constantly apologize for that and wait until you're saved for that. That's one story, right? And that's a spiritual story that's very popular in this world. Versus a story that tells you that you are part of a vast interconnected web and field that's alive as part of this tree, and you are no better nor worse than any other part of this. That you're a reflection of all those things, and they also are a reflection of you, that you are connected in ways you'll never understand. Mm-hmm. So your well-being is their well-being, and so on. And it's not just one thing. You're an independent thing, also tied to all these vast things, right? That makes you start thinking about how you relate to the world around you. So now you could take that to the most mundane level. Apple trees are a popular thing here, right? People have apple trees, and if you like those apples, they turn out to be in an apple pie. Okay, well, let's reverse that. You have to have the right soil and everything that's evolved from climate and conditions over millennia, to end up with a place that can grow something like that. You have to have the right weather. You have to have people willing to pick it. And those people have to be born, and their ancestors have to survive how many wars. And you could play that game all the way back to there was a singularity and it exploded.
Yeah.
You are connected, and that puts you in an interrelational story of the world. I think the more people who are in a interconnected, I have to relate to the world around me kind of story, I think the better we all will be.
Yeah, that's a helpful story.
Yeah, no, and that is kind of really coming to like focusing on something that I think that, again, that me and Buckley have encountered while we've been talking to people, and something that I feel is really, really important. Just what you were saying there, and it touches on other things like, I mean, animism, the way that you were talking about the interconnected web, is that something that you believe? Yes. Do you have an animistic worldview?
Very,
yeah. Yeah. And how do you, so you've got chaos magic, and you've got heathenry, and the paganism and the Wicca that you looked into. How does it all come together for you to make a practice, or do you have a daily practice or anything like that in terms of magic?
Oh, I have daily practices. Yeah. I think they blend together just great. Not just heathen people in the past, but pre-Christianity, pre-monotheism, like people, and even now, you look around, people are pretty innovative. Practical and innovative, and will find what works for them. And that's a chaos magic kind of approach too. It's being innovative, it's being practical, it's finding what works for you. I just find the story world and the spirits and such associated with heathenry to be my favorite place to play, my favorite place to touch the sacred. And animism's baked into heathenry. There's one story where Balder has a dream. Dreams are a big part of heathenry, by the way. In Nordic myth, you'll find prophetic dreams all over the board. Balder has this dream. He's going to die or whatever, and he gets worried, and Frigg gets worried, and Frigg is Odin's wife, Balder's mother. Frigg goes out and tries to get an oath from everything in the world that you will not harm my son, basically. And for some cultural reason and lore we don't know, she didn't ask mistletoe because it's too young.
Right.
Then Loki finds out. Loki fashions a dart out of mistletoe at this games where everyone's trying to kill Balder. He can't be hurt. And convinces his blind brother to throw the dart at his brother, and then, kills Balder. Everybody's very upset. And then again, Frigg goes out or they end up going to hell, which is the underworld. And Odin's wanting to free Balder from that capture, and the goddess Hel is like, look, I will let him go if everything in the world will weep for him. And again, Frigg goes out trying to get everything to cry, and everything will. And when they're talking about everything, they're talking about every god, every goddess, every human, every blade of grass, every stone, every river, every lake, every tree. And they find this one being that's like, no. Which everyone believes is Loki transformed into this, this person. There's so much depth and meaning in all of that. And there lots of paper has been written. Yeah. Lots of trees have died in the service of arguing over what all that myth means. For me, and I never see it, it was just weird to me. For me, the first lesson out of that is animism. Yeah. A great goddess is asking everything. Don't hurt my son. Why would you ask everything?
Yeah.
If everything doesn't have some kind of agency or some kind of spirit to it itself, right? And if you go back to the creation myths of it all, I mean, everything was created out of the slaughtered giant Ymir, and like his skull became something. Its blood is our rivers, and
yeah.
It's all alive anyway.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, that's fascinating. That is like such an interesting way to look at it, because I suppose that's a great example of how a story is useful in describing a principle which can be hard for people to wrap their heads around, like animism or something like that. And I think it's so forgotten at the moment, animism, the animistic worldview, because it's not a materialist worldview. And I think it's needed now, because it's so much the antithesis of the destructive form of capitalism that we have, because humans are just extracting and extracting and extracting more than we need, more than we could use, and it's being stockpiled by a few people who wouldn't do that if they could understand that what they were extracting. If you're pulling down acres and acres, thousands of acres of rainforest in Brazil or whatever, that you're not just damaging the environment, you're not just damaging a single tree or an ecosystem, but you're damaging something that has a soul as well, something that forms is not just a living thing, but is something that is I don't know, sort of part of the consciousness which forms a greater thing that's around us all the time. And I find myself despairing sometimes that people won't just look beyond what they see in front of them, or that they're told by science, or that it just seems like such a narrow view. And I think that finding the way that these ideas can work for you is such an important thing for people.
Agreed.
Yeah. But yeah, I like the way that you did it through those cool stories, though.
Yeah. Should we pivot to hypnotism now? I'm just thinking, like, we did that intro that was all punning off the hypnotism. We should probably,
something interesting.
It's. I mean, it would be kind of funny if we didn't. But,
just never refer to it.
Yeah, just never mention it. But
I mean, I suppose that one thing that when me and Buckley were talking about what we might ask you about hypnotism when we were discussing the interview, one thing that we both had written down was about hypnotism itself, and it seems like there's no real consensus or no scientific consensus as to what hypnotism really is. I mean, you may know differently. I mean, I've not looked into it all that deeply. I've read a few books about it and so on, but it seems like there's competing theories and so on. And there's some people who even just say, there's still people who say, well, hypnotism isn't real, or it is real, but it's just the same as normal suggesting, by telling someone they're hypnotized, and that kind of thing. But as someone who's obviously, I mean, you did in Hellier, you do one of those super cool kind of handshake type induction things, with Carl and that sort of thing.
A much thinner version of me, thinner, younger version of me.
When was that? Because because the hypnotism was quite a bit before the show came out, wasn't it?
No,
that one was, yeah.
There was two. There was two, wasn't there? Because there's the abduction hypnotism, but there's the hypnotism when Carl goes under and he sees the.
I'm thinking of just the abduction one. Yeah, I only rewatched one of them today,
and it is a very cool moment, that induction. But I mean, I have been hypnotized. We were talking about this before we started recording. I've had hypnotherapy, and I've hypnotized people. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with it. You know, I remember
you doing it on the bus on the way home from school.
Yeah, I was doing it to people on the bus. I hypnotized people at lunch breaks. I was just like, I was going mad for it.
Highly unethical.
It was, yeah. But no, I was just having a great time, you know. And but like. I suppose, do you have a view? I mean, do you think it's something scientific? Do you think it's something magical? Or do you think it's something in between? Or what is hypnotism?
Yeah, all that. Hypnosis has been rigorously studied scientifically. In cold, you know, in a bare room with the same recording headphones, you know, same chair. And they've done research into a lot of it for pain control and stuff like that. The efficacy of hypnosis has been proven scientifically, and it stands up as a far better intervention for people who want to do, habit changes, behavioral changes on that front to help with pain control, that sort of stuff. As to what it is and how exactly it works, I think it's still up for debate, primarily because we don't know what consciousness is. And it's interacting with consciousness. Yeah. And for everyone listening, know those mouthpieces that claim they've proven we're just sacks of meat, they're just saying that. They don't have proof.
No, 100%.
Yeah. So hypnosis is a way of guiding people into a relaxed state to lower their brain waves to a state that is the most useful place is similar to like if you were just driving in a car with listening to your favorite song with the perfect weather for you, no traffic around on a beautiful day, you know, just like that same level of you could start on an hour-long drive, get to your location and be like, wow, I don't really remember
it's like
everything
flow state,
from A to B. Yeah. And in that state, you can make deep, profound changes to your life very, very quickly. Most of what I've seen are smokers. Just help them quit smoking, you know, and an hour later they're done. I've helped people with phobias and fears. That really goes fast. I've helped people with sports performance and weight loss and all the things that most people would do for hypnosis and one alien abduction. Funny story is when I'm also a hypnosis instructor with the International Certification Board of Clinical Hypnotherapy, the ICBCH. And speaking of which, Richard Nongard, who's the president of that organization, somewhere on one of his ICBCH websites, there should be available a download of a very thick PDF of all of the studies that have been done proving the efficacy of hypnosis.
Oh, cool.
So anyway, we're in this class. We're learning how to be hypnosis instructors. We're the first people to go through this course with him. And, you know, he's like, I invited you all to be part of this because you've all proven, you know, you're skilled hypnotists and you've done unique things in your field. And he's like, I just want to hear something from each of you. What's something you've done we don't know that you've innovated or done that's unique? And at this point, Hellier, none of that had been released. I had did that alien abduction scenario for something that Greg and Dana were filming years before that called Planet Weird.
Yeah.
And that project never saw the light of day, but they took some stuff out of it and it's pieced, you know, throughout Hellier, including that experiment. So I raised my hand and I'm like, well, no one else did. I went first. And Richard's like, well, Lonnie, what you got? And I was like, well, I was part of a film project, if they ever show it, where I hypnotized a guy to think he was abducted by aliens. And everyone looks at me, and Richard looks at me, and then he looks at the room, he looks back at me, he looks at the room, and he goes, I think next we're going to talk about ethics.
It's a funny thing because the way that they show it on Hellier, they show that, and it's a really cool bit for people who haven't seen it. I mean, I think most of our listenership's probably watched Hellier, but basically, one of Greg and Dana's friends, who's also part of the crew there, Lonnie hypnotizes him, and he knows he's going to be hypnotized, this guy, and he knows, and he's willingly taking part in all of this, and he basically wants, or Greg and Dana want to make it. He doesn't believe in aliens, but to make it seem to him as if he's been abducted by an alien, to see, I suppose it's to see what that would do to his belief in the phenomena and that kind of thing. Was that what they were getting at with it? Was that what they wanted to investigate?
With the original experiment, they were, like I said, they were doing this film project called Planet Weird. And I had done some writing for them on their previous website, Who Forted, and then did some writing for them on Week in Weird. So we had this kind of friendship built up already. And Greg knew I was a hypnotist, and we kind of cooked up this idea because he wanted to interview people who claimed they'd been abducted by aliens and, get their story and stuff. And I was like, we riffed off each other with that. And like, why don't we hypnotize somebody to see what happens, know? And of course, in the film, they don't show a lot of all the preset, the warm up to that. I put them all through suggestibility exercises. We had lots of conversations about stuff, everything from satanic panic to, why I think people under hypnosis for alien abduction in a psychologist's office, I could probably prove it was false beliefs planted by the hypnotist or the psychologist being lazy with their language. And anyway, Jason, who goes on the ride, is talking to me a lot about how he's experimenting with lucid dreaming, and he shows the best results for all my suggestibility testing, and so I chose him. No one put him forward. It was just a matter of a process of elimination. Like, who would have been great? Dana would have also been a great one to work with, but she wasn't having it. And I do the induction. I explain everything that's going to, I get him prepared and do the induction and set up a safe space in his mind. So with a keyword, he can retreat somewhere immediately to feel calm, relaxed, at peace, safe, and all the things he needed. And we just went from there. I nudged him along in a story, and every once in a while I'd kind of deepen him and go from there. And then he started showing visible signs of distress and tears, and like he was visibly kind of shaking a little, and I took him out. I don't know if he believed in aliens before that or not. I'd be stunned that I was really shocked whenever they said in the final product that they said he didn't, because Jason's into a lot of weird stuff, but that doesn't automatically check the box for aliens. I was kind of surprised by that. He was a really funny dude, and to be honest, I was more concerned that once I got him under hypnosis, his humor was so strong. Like right now, he's doing stand-up comedy.
Oh, really?
He's a very funny dude.
Yeah.
I was really worried that he was going to make it stupid, make it funny.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he was going to go that dark with it, but I had been watching a lot of Darren Brown shows leading up to that point, and he has one where he did a stage show. What was it called? Svengali, maybe?
Right.
Yeah. I remember the era of
I
Dan
can't
Brown.
remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what that was called now, but it's a show he does with a doll. And it's really disturbing. And by the time he gets to the end of it, of course, it's Darren Brown, right? And I got inspired for my technique for that experiment from a lot of what he was doing with that stage show. So I knew I was engineering a darker experience because I thought it should be. I didn't know what I would get, but I know what I was pushing for. I was on a mission to prove how easy it was to plant those false memories. That's all.
There's no. I mean, I listened to a really good episode of. I think it was like a bonus episode of your podcast where you talk about the. You say a lot of that the bits that weren't shown. Basically,
I listened to them.
But I think one of the ways, and it makes for good TV, but it doesn't necessarily paint it in the light in which the experiment was intended, because straight afterwards they have Greenfield, don't they, saying something like I would be curious about the ethics.
He says an insensitive, cruel human being, something like that.
But it's not. I mean, these. I mean, you know a lot better than I do, Lonnie. That Jason is one of their friends, and he shows up in The Binding as well. He's part of their crew, and he has been always. And
he wasn't just some dude that had no interest in the paranormal,
right?
And then he would know all of the signifiers of an alien abduction. Of like kind of. He wasn't just like a guy that they plucked up off the street, but it makes it out. Like the first time I watched Hellier, I thought, "Oh my god, this poor guy!" And then but when I watched, when I've watched it since, it's like, "Oh, hang on, this has just been sort of cleverly edited to make it to sort of imply that he's just some randomer." But actually,
they've been mates for ages.
I think he knew what he was letting himself in for.
Yeah, they all grew up together.
Because it shows that on. I think it was on the Unbinding, like it has like it mentions something about. I remember watching that, thinking, "Oh, hang on, they've known him for ages." So
because he has those really cool experiences with the little doll thing, doesn't he?
I don't think they're particularly cool experiences. I think they're quite
I don't know. I mean, they were cool to watch. They were cool to watch. But what didn't occur to me when the first time I watched Hellier, or even the second time, is the relevance of, I think, what you were saying about how perhaps those memories can be implanted into someone. Because I was recently doing some reading on. Me and Buckley are preparing to do. We don't actually talk about UFOs very much on Vayse, considering it's such big news at the moment because of the whole disclosure movement and how it's just like you don't want to go anywhere near any of that. And that's all kicking off today with Trump saying that he's going to disclose everything, and God bless America.
Those Epstein files are a real motherfucker. He's trying everything else.
Exactly. Really, he doesn't want to. He's seen what's happening to Prince Andrew, and he doesn't want that for himself.
I think also like
bury them all in a deep dark hole, as far as I'm concerned.
Last week as well, Obama said, "Oh yeah, there's UFOs, there's aliens," and you can tell Trump was like, "Right, I need to one up."
Well, but it's like disclose anything, He's like, release a load of JFK files, release all the UFO files, Like as long as it's not Epstein, he doesn't care. But I was rereading the original Barney and Betty Hill report, right? And the original report, when they report it, they talk about a craft, which would be really similar to the sort of reports that you get today. There's a big craft. It's got this weird light coming out of it. They see it move over. They see it hover. They see it change direction quickly. And they see it fly away, and they follow it for a little bit. They try to follow it, and it goes out of sight. And that's it. That's it. There's no aliens in there. There's no creatures. There's no abduction. There's no beings in there. And the rest of that comes out years later under hypnotism, and again, then it becomes a matter of Barney saying something like, and I'm not an expert in this, but this is just what my reading has led me to look at. Barney then says, "Oh yeah, but I didn't want to mention it at the time, but I could see an alien like looking out a porthole at me, and then it kind of goes on to them being abducted and them losing time and all the rest of it, and it seems, and I can't, I don't know whether it was Bud Hopkins that was involved in that one or not. I know he was involved with
I can't remember. But Hopkins was in Whitley Strieber, because I'm reading a book called Report on Communion by Ed Conroy at the moment, where it's like a guy that's like going through all Whitley Strieber's communion experiences and like talking to people who knew him and stuff like that, and he's talking to like psychologists and hypnotists and stuff like that about this very thing, about the idea of like implanting memories in people and whether hypnotists can do that and whether that can sort of be. And like I was sort of revisiting that in context of this episode, thinking kind of, you know, how that relates, because we're talking to an actual hypnotist. And but like, so Bud Hopkins' role was Strieber came to him with all of these like really fucked up stories, but Strieber didn't come to him and say, I've been abducted by aliens, or Strieber came to him and said, there's this mental shit happening to me, I don't know what's going on. And then Hopkins, in his words, kind of tailored it to make it into a more coherent story. So I think Hopkins probably added, I think whatever happened to Strieber, Hopkins kind of added little bits and pieces and took bits out to kind of almost streamline it. And then Hopkins got quite annoyed when Strieber released Communion, and it wasn't... he said it would have sold better if it had been a more coherent story, if it had put this in and put that in and taken this out. And he said it was just too weird. And then they fell out because Hopkins thought it was too weird. And it's like, but it's
suggesting
kind of not,
that Whitley Strieber deviated from the story that Bud Hopkins wanted Strieber to tell.
And it's all kind of quite sinister and sort of, and I think like what the Hellier experiment kind of, or the experiment that was using Hellier kind of just really showed that is like, if someone had the right mind, or well, the wrong mind, if someone had the mind to do something like that in it, then they really could. And that's quite frightening, because if you look at the implications, so there's a guy like you seem to be a nice dude, but there are people who aren't nice dudes. And yeah, you're a nice dude. There are people who aren't nice dudes, and they are, if they have that same ability, it's like where that opens up all kinds of really horrific implications, both like, you know, on a one-to-one basis, and then also, you know, on a wider level.
What do you think about that, Lonnie? Like, is that possible? Because obviously the experiment you did in Hellier was within, like we said, within very sort of certain parameters, you know, with people who were very willing to go through with it and knew what was happening. Do you think it would be possible for someone who was unscrupulous to just put a story into someone's head like that? Is that how it works? Or not?
Yes and no.
Right.
Hypnosis doesn't work like that. Hypnosis is not mind control. You are under complete control of yourself the entire time from start to finish. At any point in that experiment, Jason could have just opened his eyes and said, I don't want to do this. You know? Yeah. It can happen. You're not under anybody's control under hypnosis. It can seem that way to an outsider who doesn't have the experience of working with people, who doesn't know how this actually flows day in and day out. Secondly, not only is it not mind control, but it's actually very empowering to the individual. You're learning how to navigate roads in your mind and control mental states and have experiences and develop strength and visualization or feeling or smell or whatever sensation that rocks for you. You know, it will be heightened, and it's a wonderful experience that way. Now, all of that said, right? A hypnotist can create false memories and so on and so on if they really want to, with lazy language. I absolutely do believe that's possible. That said, so can a psychologist, so can a cop, so can a marketer and advertiser, so can your mom and dad, so can your friends. So can your ex-girlfriend. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Right now, this very moment, you two and everyone listening to us has a memory and a voice that isn't even theirs, that impacts their mood, their behavior, their self-belief, their self-worth. Everyone's got something like that, for good or ill, all along that spectrum, and it's not even in your own voice. Chances are it's been transformed over years from the original, you know, sound, speaker, or experience into that message that you never actually heard that way. It's what your unconscious mind built. right? So you take that into consideration and then study how memory works. There's a great book out there called The 7 Sins of Memory that looks into the details of how we recall stuff. And,
because it's like removed,
every time you remember something, you're remembering a memory of a memory.
You're remembering the memory of a memory.
Right.
Yes, it's like a photocopy of a photocopy.
So,
yeah.
And one of the wildest things in that research to me was interviewing newlyweds like a year after their wedding on details like what color was everybody wearing, how big was the cake, what was on the cake, just details of the wedding and how bad they were at answering it.
Wow.
Yeah. If perspective is a matter of a matter to take into concern, if I want to plant some idea in your head, all I have to do is say, you can repeat it a few times and have you don't even have to be in a special state. If I tell you enough times the car you saw was white, and hey, what was that white car doing? And when the white car went by, and when the white car did this, and when the white car did that, and I know it was a red car, It
does work. I mean, I read a book, like the Alan Carr book, to stop me vaping, to get me off nicotine, and it worked.
Nice.
But then looking back on it had like the same repetitive phrases over and over again, and I couldn't work out why it worked. I think I've talked about this before, but I feel like it was exactly what you're talking about. I feel like it was like a sort of almost repeated, almost like a mantra, or like, it's like a repeated phrase that somehow goes into your head. And even though I didn't read it in like a kind of trancey state or anything like that, I just read it as I would, thinking, oh yeah, well, hopefully this works, kind of thing. And then like it worked, it really did work. And so it's like it is like you say, it is kind of, I guess I guess maybe what you're saying is hypnotism is one way of doing something which is
it's an easy devil to point at for people who don't understand it, because it looks like people are under control.
Yeah, especially when you do it and you get like the spirals in your eyes and you
but in reality, it's a phenomena. Just it's part of hypnotists know how to get you to a part of your brain that happens to everyone every day, multiple times a day. We just know how to use it for good, constructive purposes. Yes, there are people who look to use it for nefarious purposes, and they're not usually called hypnotists. They're called marketers and advertisers. And people who know how to. You should look into these rigorous study of how food and items are placed in a grocery store.
Oh yeah. I've heard about that. Yeah, because
you will learn a ton about your brain in the process. I mean, this is down to how the aisles are formed, and
and like the order in which you walk through and stuff like that. It's all wild.
I suppose that when you're looking at the ethics, then you're kind of more looking towards the ethics that you would if you were looking for a therapist or a psychiatrist or something, because I suppose some people who've had these weird experiences go to a hypnotist as a last resort to try to make some sense out of the experience they've had. And if that person is unethical, they could do something that a therapist would have done, an unethical therapist would have done if they'd gone to a therapist, or even like you said, Lonnie, an unethical parent who would say, well, you've definitely been taken by the Zeta Reticulans, and I was when I was your age.
It's a position,
a narrative. But we talked about the power of narrative, didn't we? Already.
It's a power thing, isn't it? A position thing, and like and kind of, I suppose it's like that. That's something that there's lots of opportunities that people could abuse that. Do you ever wish that things had been slightly different and we were still calling it mesmerism? Because I think that's cool. I think mesmerism is far cooler than hypnotism.
Animal magnetism.
Mesmerism. Like Lonnie Scott, mesmerist.
Please no.
Okay.
You touched on something really important when you said it's a power thing, because I think that danger in a nefarious hypnotist, as we were talking about, or psychologist or someone of that nature, the real inherent danger that's waiting for people, unfortunately, in the wrong hands, isn't so much what they're saying or doing, in the practice, in the hypnosis portion, or in the the psychologist guiding or teaching exercises. The real nefarious thing that can be manipulated is our natural compliance with authority. That is a scary, real thing, and nefarious people know how to hijack that scenario to their own benefit and to your very detriment. So be careful with who you get involved with. In any field.
We're getting really anointed now.
Yeah,
Vayse is getting anointed.
It does seem that that it would make sense that like people in the intelligence community who are looking into the UFO type stuff, that they would know how to be suggestible even without using hypnotism. I mean, you hear about CIA and FBI people who are sort of super experts in body language or something, where they can both read the body language of someone else, but also use their own body language to project a certain thing, or even if you look at a stage magician, the way that they can
like
use their body language, they can divert your attention to exactly where they want to because they've practiced it so much that they can do that. But I mean, it's just like a fascinating thing, the way our brains work. You were saying it's about consciousness and no one understands it. I was listening to this interview with Donald Hoffman.
He
talks about the hard problem of consciousness. And God, it was complicated. But he was talking about consciousness existing outside of space-time and all this stuff. And it just shows that these people are hugely intelligent, like talking about stuff that I can't possibly understand. And they can't understand it either, They've used all of their intelligence and training to try to look at it, and it's just not there. But I mean, that could be because, I mean, in saying, I've been looking at the Tao Te Ching again, but the Tao that you can name is not the real Tao. It's like, is consciousness. You don't have to understand exactly what consciousness is to be able to be useful with it. I mean, we all do every day. But one thing that is interesting is how it's used in magic. Trance states have been around for thousands of years and seem to be the core of a lot of magical practice. And a lot of the people who I know who have, without a doubt, the most natural magical abilities, the tarot readers that I know and that kind of thing, are also people who are going to, I forget the word that you used before, but they're the people who will go into a trance state more easily than others. There seems to be a relationship there, people who can do it. And I did the trance course, Aidan Wachter's trance course at the end of last year, which was a kind of trance and journeying, and I've had massive benefits from doing that as well. I do think. I mean, do you find it useful? Do you use it in your own magical practice? That sort of trance state?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
I've used because hypnosis is trance. It is, and there are some schools of hypnosis who do not like that to be said, but I don't care. I'm the chaos guy, right? I was going to say you're the chaos magic guy. Yeah, I'm the one that's going to break the rules all the time.
I think I should interject at that point and say that we need to call this episode "We Can Trance If We Want to." Like in reference to the safety dance. Just a suggestion.
Yeah. So it's all trance to me, and what's cool is, I think it was Milton Erickson, the famous hypnotist, who studied trance effects in different realms, like different ways it showed up in the world. I've noticed it a lot because of just my associations with the occult and different traditions and friends doing different things. When you get somebody in a hypnotic trance, there's something that I call it the hypnotic mask. I've heard this referred to across the industry. When I go watch a stage show, I can tell you who's going to be dismissed from the stage and who will get to stay, just because of all the people I've worked with over time, you learn to recognize it. And I can't describe it. I've never seen it written in a book. I've never been taught it in a course. It's just something you just learn to recognize. And I've spoken to other hypnotists in the field. They all know what I'm talking about. When I do trance work in my own magical practice, I'm sure I probably exhibit those same looks. When I've helped others through trance work, teaching them for more magical or spiritual reasons, they show that same look. When I have attended a couple voodoo ceremonies, when they're dancing and doing their thing and the drumming is going on and all the singing and the chanting, if I look closely at their faces, they have the same look. So it's a mechanism that's built into us somehow that allows us to access something way cooler inside. How far out of us that goes, I don't know. But I know that the inner worlds that you can explore through that are vast and infinite, and there are universes of cool shit to discover in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because you were saying about it being a natural process in our mind, and I've got ADHD, and I was talking to my mum actually while we were up in Scotland recently, and talking about how as a kid I would just just drift off somewhere, like I'd be in the middle of class or something, and I'd just be gone. But it wasn't just being like lazy or ignorant. It was floating off into your own world. And she'd had a similar thing as a kid all the time, just like, and there's a crossover between meditation there as well. There's almost like a peaceful state, but it's a powerful thing that I think, you hit on it before, Lonnie, when you were talking about advertising and marketers exploiting it, because in a classroom, you get told not to do that, and they force you not to go into that state, right? But if you go on Instagram or something like that, immediately they have a way of looking
exactly
at the camera.
Yeah,
they have a certain music being played, and then they just want to keep you. They want to keep you trapped. They want to keep you in that state.
Weaponized, isn't it?
And like being like someone with like that sort of distractibility, I will spend like if I let myself go on Instagram, which I don't do very much anymore, I can be on there for 2 hours without knowing that the time is gone, because I'm just like straight in, like it's hijacked whatever system is in my brain that it needs to, and that for me, like and there's adverts going up, they're advertising stuff, and that's all going into my head. I'm not giving consent to that, other than obviously like having opened the program, which is why I don't use it anymore. But they could pour anything into my brain whilst I'm scrolling around in there. And that is the most unethical and nefarious use of that sort of state that I can possibly think of, because they're basically like fueling capitalism. But going back to, what was that? Is Century of Self, that documentary?
Oh, the Adam Curtis one.
About, I can't remember who that guy, I can never remember his name, the guy who was Freud's nephew. I can't remember, but he basically invented modern advertising. But again, he knew how to get into your brain in a certain way and, make you get that suggestibility going.
Yeah.
It's all very fucked up.
Millions and millions of dollars have been spent, too, on social media alone to understand how push notifications appear in your life on your phone to give you a dopamine hit similar to a drag of a cigarette or a bump of cocaine or fucking an espresso shot, all the addictive things in life,
horrible.
Right? But what no one understands is if you've got that thing set to vibrate, ding, show you that, show you every time you get one and you respond to it like a trigger, you're working on those same highways in your brain that all that other bad stuff runs on, right?
Yeah.
So
you've got to pull these
millions of dollars have been spent to make sure that happens.
It's just awful, isn't it?
It's fucked up.
Hypnotists are not the bad guys. That's all I'm saying.
They're the ones who help break that shit. Edward Bernays, that was the guy. Edward Bernays, he was the nephew of Freud, who basically invented this modern idea of marketing now, and it was all based on this. It's psychological manipulation, it's suggestibility, and it's what keeps us locked into this cycle of buying stuff we don't need and spending money that we don't need to. It's like horrendous. Like that you were just saying, Lonnie, though, about, that's basically like, that I can't think of much less ethical than that, because they'll tell you be gamble aware or whatever, but at the same time they're spending millions to keep you addicted to something, like addiction specialists, basically. It makes you feel dirty, doesn't it?
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
What do you think is the one thing, or it doesn't have to be one thing, just an overall thing that you've taken away from speaking to all these wonderful people, and has it changed the way that you look at your own practice or your own life even?
I've gotten so many benefits out of it. I couldn't point to just one thing. I mean, as far as my practice goes, I've picked up ideas from people along the way. Every once in a while, a conversation will like unlock something that's been kind of thorny in my brain and help me understand it all of a sudden. So there's all of that. There's, from the beginning of the show, not knowing what these people are like. They're just names on the spine of a book, and then getting to know them as real people has been wonderful. That what you, good listener, may view as the biggest, baddest witch or magician or sorcerer in the world also has fears and doubts and wonder if they're just deluded, and how they have to get through the dark times too. Right? And one message comes up over and over and over and over and over again, and it's something that's really important to me too, is that you're only as alone as you want to be. Find the others, find your community, find the people that you can be with and feel safe and riff off of, and remind each other that magic's real, that when the doubt sets in, that you're not alone in that darkness, that you have someone to help get you back to that light.
I love that.
That's really nice. That's like we've had sort of some fairly negative content in our show, like over the past couple of episodes, and it's good to sort of, I think that's a really nice sort of place
some nice positivity
to take us. Yeah.
So we usually ask our guests if they can recommend any books or movies or podcasts, TV shows, documentaries.
Well, that's why I suggested we start wrapping up now.
You take as much time as you want to.
I've got my car being repaired right now. I'm not done.
I got nowhere to go.
I'm stuck.
So I mean, anything like so where would people start with, where would people start with heathenry? Where would people start with hypnotism if you had to recommend?
I love this.
Yeah.
Fantastic sets of questions. Let's go through the works. So we'll start with magic and everything, right? 6 Ways by Aidan Wachter. 100%. It is the skeleton key to everything. It really is. I don't know that Aidan set out to do it that way. He just did.
He
just did.
It's such a fantastic book. It really is just one of the best.
Yeah. So 6 Ways by Aidan Wachter, Sorcerer's Secrets, or I guess it's called Real Sorcery now, by Jason Miller. And start there. Just start there.
I love Jason Miller's writing as well.
Yeah. And if you're into a more of a witchcraft bend, then Jason Miller, or not Jason, but Aidan Wachter again, 6 Ways. But then go with Besom, Stang, and Sword by Christopher Orapello and Tara McGuire. They're the hosts of Down at the Crossroads. They're fucking fabulous people, and they wrote a badass book on traditional witchcraft too. So there's that. If you want to do the more Wicca or modern paganism kind of approach, Thorne Mooney's work, excellent. John Beckett's work is excellent. Those are great places to start. Anything that Morgan Daimler's wrote, read it. No matter what you're into, because Morgan's awesome. Let's see. What else do we want to get to? For Heathenry, Our Troth, 3rd edition, volume 1, 2, and 3 really are the best works available. I don't just say that because I'm a member of the clergy of the Troth, but it really is that good.
And what's in there?
Volume 1 is all the history from way back in the Bronze Age and prehistoric stuff up to modern issues, even confronting the problem of folkish heathens, which are the racist ones.
Oh, yeah.
And dealing with those assholes. And volume 2 is all the gods and goddesses and various different kinds of spirits, facts about them, and also people telling their own experiences. So to me, it's more of a living religious document that way. And then volume 3 is like, what are the ethics? How do you do a ritual? How do you do this? How do you do that? Like, that's all the how-to stuff.
Oh, cool.
They're great. If you don't want to spend that much money, Practical Heathen's Guide to Asatru by Patricia LaFayle, excellent book. Elves, Witches, and Gods by Kat Heath, also excellent. And I'm trying to think what I would recommend for hypnosis these days. I would go with Integrative Hypnosis by, I forget her name. I'll tell you in a second. Must Google. Whoops. It's over on one of my bookshelves, so I don't want to run across the room. Melissa Tears.
Oh, Melissa Tears. Okay.
Yeah, Melissa Tears, Integrative Hypnosis. And it's more of a transcript of a conference she was teaching, but I really love her approach. What she does, it's excellent in this form of teaching. I would also say the one that I use to teach whenever I teach hypnosis, I want to make sure I get the title right because I just use it so much I don't think of it anymore. It's by Richard Nongard, and it's called Keys to the Mind.
Okay. Yeah, I've not heard of that one before.
It should still be available. I use it. I have it in an ebook format, and I can loan it to my students very easily. Yeah. That's why I say I don't think about it.
No, yeah.
It should still be available in print. It's very excellent. So for hypnosis, I would go those two routes: Integrative Hypnosis, Melissa Tears, and Keys to the Mind by Richard Nongard. Does that cover everything you wanted?
Yeah, that's thank you for our listeners to get into that. Yeah, definitely.
I love books. It's weird where I'm sitting, you can't see all my massive personal library. There's behind me, there's that one bookshelf, right? Yeah. And it's got all my tarot collection on top and then books. But then there's the massive shelves over there and there and there.
Yeah, that's what we like to see those. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, I mean, books are the way that's
I'm
one of the.
I've got a stack right next to me. I got a stack on the kitchen table. There's a huge stack.
Yeah,
over on my love seat where I normally sit. I have a book problem.
Yeah, I'm in a very, very similar situation.
I have a book problem. It's funny for all my adult life. People will ask, "What do you like? What do you want for Christmas?" And I'm like, "Oh, I keep an Amazon list. It's just books." Get one of those. And no one's like, that can't be enough. I'm like, no, really, that will make me happier than happy.
Yeah.
They're like, well, if that's not enough, pick your favorite local coffee place and put a $5 gift certificate in there too as a bookmark. I don't care. I have a book problem.
With a book, it's like you think about the hours of like entertainment or like time that you get out of them, like out of one book. Say if a book costs like £8 or whatever the equivalent of that is in dollars, like
$10, yeah.
And then they're like
about $10.
You've got like hours and hours and hours, and that's just the first read. But then you could read it again a year later. But then also there's all the things that it could do for you in terms of your imagination. It's like, yeah, again, I've used this phrase a lot tonight for some reason, but massively underrated.
Yeah, but I mean,
people don't realize how awesome they are.
Yeah, no, but that's it. I mean, you get that you pay your $10 or your £8 to get the book, and you get your whether you enjoy it or you don't, you get your money's worth. And it's such we were talking before about social media. You pay nothing for that, and it rots your brain. It's like the opposite of reading. It takes all that's good stuff out of it.
Yeah. And research has been. I mean, nonfiction. That's your constant reference, right? Most of my library is nonfiction.
Yeah.
For fiction, there's been a lot of cool research into this. People who read a lot of fiction have more empathy, more emotional intelligence, are better at communicating. It really has great impact on you.
Yeah.
So read.
Yeah, you're preaching to the converted here. Yeah. It's like I've got one Kindle book, one hard copy book, and an audio book on all at once.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Because the Kindle book is like for convenience, or if I wake up in the night and I can't sleep, so I don't wake my wife up by putting the light on, I can just have the Kindle book. The Kindle book also good for transport, for traveling, etc. Audiobook for walking and for like the gym, and then reading book for like comfort, because it's nice to read a good actual book. Like there's something kind of cold and disconnected about the Kindle. Although I do love the convenience of it, I prefer a nice book that I can like smell and hold. Yeah.
What's your favorite fiction book, Lonnie? What would you say would be?
Man, I'm real.
He's not going to have one.
I'm real split.
Yeah.
I mean, the book that made me fall in love with fiction was The Great and Secret Show by Clive Barker.
Yes,
there you go.
Oh man, we had another guest on a few weeks ago who's like a university
philosopher of dark Gothic literature.
And she's written a book about Clive Barker, which Hine got me for Christmas, which I've not read. But this is Great and Secret Show. I've been trying to tell Hine to read this for years because
fantastic.
Isn't it so good? Like I reread it. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. I reread it last year.
We might do an episode on it because Buckley's been telling me to read it for ages. I bought it when Buckley told me how good it was, and I still haven't read it.
It'd have to be a big episode. I actually bought another copy of it because my copy was so worn out. Like it had fallen apart. It was all because it's like it's so cool. All the magic stuff in it. Like there's no way that Barker hasn't read some stuff about the occult and like his
for sure.
Like the way that he talks about it and stuff. Like I didn't realize that when I first read it, but having spent like 4 years doing a podcast about the occult and reading lots of books about it, it's like, oh yeah, this guy knows. Have you read Weave World as well?
Yeah, I've consumed everything for Clive Barker.
Yeah,
Magical was like huge for me too in my youth.
Magic is amazing. I'm considering I've not done a fiction for a while. I've been reading a lot of non-fiction, but I'm considering for a nice comforting fiction book to do Sacrament, because I've not read that one for ages.
I read that.
It's like about this like photographer who's like trying to capture like the essence of nature, and he's like trying to find like the secret of, almost a bit like Frankenstein in that way. But he's a photographer, and then loads of weird Clive Barker shit happens. It's one of his like big epic fantasies, like Great and Secret Show and Weave World. It's really cool.
I've missed
I'm really
that
looking forward to
somehow.
starting it again.
Yeah.
Have you read Piranesi by Susanna Clarke?
No, I haven't.
You should read that.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's very small. It's like it's not. I read it in like a week or something. It's quite a short book.
What was her big book? The
Doctor Strange and Mr. Norrell.
That's it.
Yeah, I've never read that one.
Yeah.
I
never read it, but I think I watched the movie for that.
So Piranesi is quite different. I don't think it's like a Magic in any way, actually. Great and Secret Show in any way, but people who we have a lot of guests on here who've read it and love it, and like I just have a sense that you will like it because it's got a magic to it that I can't describe. I'm sorry, I'm going off on.
I'll try it.
Wild tangents. Yeah, Piranesi. It won loads of awards. It won like loads of awards because it's like it's just a really weird, beautiful, haunting book.
I'm down for it.
It's one of my other favorites other than Great and Secret Show. So
and if you want like a series, I've got two that I fell in love with. One's The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. It's just pure fun and also rich in lore of various cultures and stuff. And it's werewolves, vampires, magic, what's not to like. And it's several of those books, all set in Chicago mostly. And the other is the Sandman Slim series by Richard Kadrey.
Yeah,
similar in a way to the Dresden Files, but way darker. Like the main character Stark is a hitman in hell that escapes to get revenge on his friends that sent him there, basically. Wow. And he's got all that magic of hell and the experience, and also full of lore and cool shit. And
lore and cool shit.
Yeah.
Lore and cool shit.
That's what you want. That's
going to be my next show. Lore and cool shit.
We'll be your first guests.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'll link to all this in the show notes so that people can find it all. And shout out to Sirica, who wrote the book on the Clive Barker, and she signed it for Buckley when I gave him for Christmas, which he was super, super pleased with. So what's next for you, Lonnie? Like, have you got any projects on the go at the moment? Because you're still doing Weird Web Radio, aren't you? And,
that's not stopping anytime soon. I can do that until I can't. I don't know when that day will come. I can't imagine
Hopefully
it.
Never, yeah. Keep on going.
Yeah. Right now, I've got a fun little book. It's almost ready to be published. We're working on the final edits. It's called Java Mall. It's my riff on the first 80 some stanzas of the Havamal, only I made the central character coffee.
Oh, wow.
It's fun and also full of that Havamal type wisdom. It'll be a little bitty book.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah,
I'm a massive coffee fan. Me and Buckley both are, but it's
nice. Me too.
Yeah. I'm decaf these days, though.
Yeah, it's lame. I'm sorry.
I drink a lot of it. Yeah, but it's lame. But I tell you what's not lame: sleeping.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's very fair. You're gonna outlive all of us. What else is there going on? I'm putting together a course I'm probably going to teach soon on my Patreon for my show on my approach to runic sorcery. So that'll be coming soon. I'm just about finished fleshing that out the way I want it. Other than that, I don't have anything so concrete. I'd really like to announce it.
Excellent. No, that's really good. Yeah. Where can people find you online?
WeirdWebRadio.com or Patreon.com/WeirdWebRadio. Everything I do is pretty much available through those sources. You can contact me, listen to everything I do, book tarot readings, do whatever you want, all through there.
Perfect. I'll link to that in the show notes. And if people want to find more Vayse, then you can find us where we are on Instagram and we are on Blue Sky. I think we're still on Twitter, but no one looks at us, and we don't really use it.
I'm not on Twitter.
No, it's an absolute cesspit at the moment.
Yeah, it's full of bots and Nazis.
It is like terrifying when you go on there now. But the best place to find us is www.vayse.co.uk. You can get all of our podcasts there. They're available on all the major podcasting platforms, but only at www.vayse.co.uk can you get the full show notes, and they'll be big for this episode, so everyone check that out. You can email us on vayse.info@gmail.com with any ideas for us or tell us your experiences or anything that you'd like us to talk about. We'll have a look at that. I am in the process of responding to emails at the moment. I am, as people know at the moment, a few months behind, but I am trying to catch up. There is Bandcamp, where the soundtrack to the series is available, done by our very own Stephen James Buckley under the name Polypause. 2 volumes with a third to come shortly. And you can, if you want to sling us cash, you can do so on Ko-Fi. And if you give us a regular donation, you can join our Discord, which is cool at the moment. There's loads of people on there doing lots of cool and interesting stuff, as always. So thanks very much, Lonnie. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
I've really enjoyed this.
It's been great.
This was a lot of fun.
And I can't wait for people to hear all the stuff we talked about, because it's something that we went into so many areas that we haven't talked about before here. I'm really excited. Thank you very much.
We ticked a few boxes, didn't we? Yeah, it's been great.
No, thank you for having me. This was fun.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Stay in touch with us. We'll
absolutely.
That's one of the best things about doing this podcast is the friends that we make along the way. You know, so the people that we can kind of, you know. One more question before you go, Lonnie. So you mentioned Darren Brown. So if you and him had like a hypnotist battle, do you think you could take him down? Do you think you could take him?
Yes, because Darren always talks about how when somebody was going to attack him or something, he would confuse them by like going, the fence in my yard is only so high. And it'd be like, the person would go, what? It'd be like, the fence in my yard is only so high. I did jujitsu for a long time. I just sing a leg takedown and
I wouldn't have thought of that way.
Really, Darren, if you ever hear this, I'd really rather just have coffee.
It'd be so funny now if we could see in the background behind you, just like this Darren Brown, like creeping up behind you.
That'd be cool.
Vayse.